Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Brunslick. Updates on my life. So, if you do get the weekly slay, you've heard a version of this story. If you don't get the weekly slay, what are you doing? Like, do you know that I send out a weekly, funny story, combining all my therapy nuggets and funny things that happen? You should be on that list. We'll have that link below. But so last week, Kirby and I are at the dinner table with our kids and kind of out of nowhere. So Ty is our fireball kid. She's our youngest. And she goes, and keep in mind, like every day we ask, like, anything happened today? No, 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 no. And she's like, no, not really. So this is why you've heard me say that I started the who would you hit, who would you high five, and who would you hug, which got really annoying for a while there because nobody in my family was hitting anyone. And I'm like, you guys, just to review, you don't have to actually hit someone. Like, you could be, I'm hitting myself because I didn't drink enough water, or like I'm hitting this math formula because, or like learning in math and it's really hard, or like you don't have to hit someone. They're all just a bunch of nice people. And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out what frustrated you today. So we're at dinner and kind of out of nowhere, Ty just goes, oh, yeah, I started a meditation club at school. And we're like, what? Now, keep in mind that Ty is the kid that has been she's had to be on and off this system called like check in, check out, meaning where we get like a report card of how she acted in class. Like she's gotten kicked off the bus. She has put kids in headlocks. But she's also one of the sweetest kids ever. But she's fiery. And so Kirby and are like, what? You started a meditation club? She's like, yeah. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during recess. And we're like, that's amazing. Did any has anybody signed up? She's like, yeah, a bunch of kids. And so then the next thing is like Kirby meditates, but like I say I meditate, but I really don't. And our children, we don't meditate as a family. Like she doesn't meditate. And so then the next natural thing is like, do you do you know how to meditate or lead kids through a meditation? She's like, no, not really, but I'll figure it out. So this could not be more this is probably the number one example I've ever witnessed firsthand of how much our children are a product of their parents. So, we asked because her first meditation club was supposed to be on Monday, and we asked that night, we're like, "How did meditation club go?" And she goes, "Oh, I forgot." Follow through, follow through. She gets that from both her parents. So I'll keep you updated as to how that goes. Like, so there's the natural part of me that wants to be like, okay, well, we need to practice. I need to quick teach her because that's the skill that eventually she'll learn of like a little preparation. Like, can I wing this? Yes. Yes, I can. She gets that from me. If- Is it more comfortable and a better outcome for everyone if I prep a little bit? Yeah. So I'm trying to just let her learn that lesson on her own. Well, we shall see. But like I said, if you're not on the weekly sleigh, you should be. Sign up and get my weekly emails just with my little stories. Because if you like these, that's what those are. Now, what else do we have as far as updates? Oh, I can't tell you I can't tell you any more details than this one thing. But maybe pencil in being available the weekend of October 19th. Just just in case. Just in case something is happening, something big that you will probably want to be at. By probably, I mean you're gonna want to be at it. So like I'm not allowed, I'm not authorized to tell you any more of that. And it's not one of those like lame things. You guys know this is a soapbox for me, right? Where people are like, exciting announcement coming tomorrow. And then it's like, we added a doctor. And it's like, you really didn't need to. Okay, that is exciting, but like doesn't really benefit me that much. Like I'm happy for you. But the build up, like exciting. I'm waiting, making you wait. Like, this better benefit me. Like, are you giving me a puppy? Like, what is the news? Oh, it's that. So I would just tell you, but I am not authorized yet to. So just pencil in being available potentially that weekend, October 19th. You're gonna want to. So let's talk about today's episode. So today I have on Leigh-Allyn Baker, and she is a versatile American actress known predominantly for her role as Amy Duncan in the popular Disney Channel series Good Luck Charlie. Half of you watched it because you were young enough to watch it. And then the other half of you, well, then a third of you probably have children that watched it. And then another third of you, like me, are too old. And my children were too young when Good Luck Charlie was huge. We were watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. She has an extensive career spanning various television shows, films, and video games, including recurring appearances on acclaimed series. Her voice acting talent has garnered recognition, notably winning an Emmy Award for her portrayal of Abby in the animated series Back at the Barnyard. Beyond her professional achievements, Baker is known for her outspoken faith and advocacy for freedom, often sharing her beliefs on social media. Currently, Baker is also involved in producing a three-part movie series, a children's show, and working on her debut book, maintaining her influential presence in the entertainment industry. And today, we are talking about how she got shunned when she spoke out during COVID. We wouldn't know what that's like. Well, we wouldn't. Honestly, most of us did not have Hollywood's scrutiny to pay for. So we get to hear about that story and just some of the behind the scenes of what happens when you get out of line. So let's take a deep breath and relax. Relax your shoulders and jaw, just in case you're holding them. Pay attention to where you're touching the earth. Hi, friend. Have you drank any water today? I haven't. I will after this, though, I promise. I'll drink water if you drink water. Have you taken a deep breath today? Have you been conscious in the moment? Or have you just been doing your to-do list, your to-go list, your productivity list, checking things off? Just remember that so much of you showing up for your patients and your family really does involve you putting yourself first and like taking care of some of these basic things. So just take a breath. Can you say something nice to yourself? Can you be aware just for a little bit of the thoughts that are happening and just turn that love that I know so many of you are so good at projecting outwards? Can you just take 30 seconds to project that inward? Because you're really cool and like the world needs more of you and we need less burnout. And I don't know how to fix that for you. I'm working on fixing it for myself. And so let's just all do it together and continue to support each other and listen to cool stories about medical freedom. All right. Enjoy this episode with American actress Leigh-Allyn Baker. Okay, well, I guess like the first real question I have is like, so you famously went against a narrative during the pandemic.
Yes.
Up until that point,
Mhm.
had you done much? Like, had you kind of already gone down this rabbit hole? Had you
Yes.
publicly spoken? Like, give me kind of the up until the pandemic started. This is where I was at on
I was
this.
at the keep your mouth shut and go along to get along. I knew
You
my
didn't. Did you want
I
to become the next Jenny McCarthy?
I wanted to desperately, but when I went into my doctor's office because I was astounded that my kids were injured by their vaccines, and their old doctors were like, "You're right, they have been injured. We acknowledge it, but we have a strict policy here that who is here with us needs to continually be vaccinated." So it was no longer safety first.
Right.
It was
No.
like, "Oh, well, this is a rule. We have to vaccinate all of our kids, so yours have to be vaccinated." And then they turned me over to they said, "Well, if you want a medical exemption and you want a doctor that will actually see your kids that won't force you to vaccinate them. This is who you go to." Like they gave me the number of the guy to go to. So I go to the guy who was Jenny McCarthy's guy, and he said, "Do not speak out. This is not the time." He warned me to be quiet.
What yearish was this?
This was like I knew my kids were injured in, like, 2013, 14.
Okay, so you said kids. Like,
Mhm.
what
So
are you comfortable talking about, like, what happened? That
yeah, so my oldest son, I spread his shots out, and here's why I did. I'm just an inquisitive person, I like to ask questions. If something doesn't seem right, I don't just blow it off as, "Ah, I'm stupid, who cares, just move along." I'm more like, "What that doesn't seem right."
okay.
And so I knew, why would all these thousands and thousands of parents give the same story and testimony about what happened to their children and all point to the same thing when the end result is that they're ostracized and made out to be a villain? I
Right,
didn't understand what parents had to gain. I clearly knew what drug companies had to gain, but I
right.
didn't understand what parents had to gain. Still knowing that, I was able to be persuaded by fear.
Yeah. I mean, that's complete. I knew without a shadow of a doubt, like, when I have kids, they will not get vaccinated, no, 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 and there is this moment, I am holding my 4-day-old baby, and I remember it just going like, but I wanna protect you from everything. And
Yes.
there was just this shadow of a doubt that, like, snuck in that's like, "But I wanna protect you. So what am I doing? How if I don't give you the vaccines, I'm not protecting you." And so it's a good fear is a very motivating thing with parents because you will do anything to
Anything,
protect
and they
them.
know it. And if they didn't know it then, they know it now because now
Yeah.
I will do anything. That means
Mhm.
standing up and speaking the truth even when no one else wants to hear it or say it.
So when
So
did you suspect so you spaced out the
I
vaccines.
spaced out the vaccines for my son Griffin, and he started having after each vaccine, and I didn't put the pieces together, but you can go through his medical records, and it's actually heartbreaking that after each one, there's like an all over body rash, there's like a high fever, there's
Mhm.
like blisters on the feet, there's like all these different things that would happen afterwards, swollen lymph nodes in the entire system in your body. The ones in the back of the head would
Were you
swell.
just gaslit when you would call and say,
I would
like, "Is
say,
he
"Look, we
okay?"
thought this is this a reaction?" And every single on his medical record time that I took him into the doctor after he had a reaction, they would say, "Mother questions vaccines, mother questions vaccines." And on the last one where he was diagnosed with dyspraxia because he was no longer able to walk without being on his tiptoes and was falling over and bumping into walls, the last one was mother suspects vaccines. I even had a doctor there say, "I trust your instinct, and I think you're right, but that's our policy."
Wow.
And I said, "You told me they" I was so mad. I said, "You told me they were safe. I trusted you."
Mhm.
And she said, "Well," this was her example to me, "they could get hit by a car tomorrow too."
Oh, oh.
I said, "Yeah, the thing is, funny thing about that, like, I don't put my newborn in front of a moving Mack truck 8 times during its first 2 months of life."
Right. So you said kids, so you have a second child? Because I mean, that's traumatic.
Yes.
That's
So,
traumatic. So what age was Griffin when he was diagnosed with dyspraxia?
4 years old.
Yeah, so you saw the
And at that
digression.
point, I had had Baker and had a severe reaction from him after his first 2 months vaccines. So what happened was we brought him home after his vaccination, and I didn't space his out because they kept saying that things that were happening with Griffin were just odd, that they were just chance. Kids get sick. Mine was
Yep.
sick all the time. I didn't understand why some parents could send their kids to school with a cold and they were fine, or like they would have a cold and they'd be out for a day when my kid would be down for 2 weeks with double pneumonia. Like, I
Mm,
didn't get it, like, well, that's not this is odd. Then it was,
mhm.
like, dark circles under the eyes, unable to breathe, swollen adenoids, and tonsils that were so big that he had sleep apnea. We actually and everybody says, "Oh, so what? Have his tonsils removed." Okay, I did, and I begged the doctor, "Is this from the vaccines?" "No, no, 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 they just need their tonsils removed." So I removed them, and they grew back. Oh, yeah, people don't know that. Guess what? Your tonsils can regenerate, and I'm glad they did. I'm
I
glad
didn't
they
know that.
yeah, his one of his
What?
tonsils when he was being inspected by a school nurse for an IEP, they have to be inspected by a nurse. She said, "Mrs. Kaufman, you said that he had his tonsils removed, and he has a tonsil on one side." And I said, "I'm so glad that I was calm and didn't go like, 'No, you idiot, they're not there.'"
Right.
I was so done with the medical community
Yeah.
that I just said, "Oh, well, I assure you they've been removed." I go to my holistic practitioner after that when we were trying to heal him and recover him from the vaccine injury. And she goes, "Come here and look at this." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "His tonsil regenerated."
That's
I was like,
incredible. The body is incredible.
The body is incredible, incredible. And it was born with an incredible immune system that does not need to be altered or messed with, and certainly doesn't need to be injected with poisons from the most corrupt industry in the history of the world.
Mhm. So, okay, so you said 2013 is really when this you start going
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole and
So what
you
happened
are going to
was
an yeah.
I my 2-month-old, after the shots, I brought him home and he was fine for 3 hours, and then he started this high-pitched, blood-curdling scream that he would turn red and get stiff and his eyes would roll back in his head. He did this for 6 hours, couldn't nurse, couldn't feed, couldn't eat from a bottle, inconsolable. I got in a bathtub with him, I got in a shower with him, I tried to nurse him, rock him, everything. Nothing, it was like nothing I'd ever heard. So much so that I called the doctor and he was screaming. And they said, "I'm so sorry that this happened to you of all people." I'm like, "Why me of all people?" Like,
Right.
bad no matter who
What
it
does
happens
that
to.
mean?
Because I've been questioning vaccines. That's why me of all people. Because it is a vaccine reaction, but it's absolutely normal. If he goes into a seizure, get to the hospital as quickly as possible. That's what I was advised.
Oh
And
my gosh.
thank God I had 3 adult witnesses there with me to hear this. And I didn't recognize, luckily, I'm thankful to God because I did not recognize him getting red and stiff and eyes rolling back in the head and collapsing as a seizure. At the time, I thought a seizure was shaking, but there are other types of seizures. And he was having, I learned from the Merck pharmaceutical insert and from my other doctor, he was having aluminum induced encephalitis from a high toxic load of aluminum that, according to the FDA, is not even allowed into adults, but is
Right.
somehow put in children's vaccines and not even questioned. So
Mhm.
he had enough aluminum in those vaccines to cause neurological injury to a 200-pound man. And this baby got more than a dose that was even safe for a 200-pound man.
It's it's
And they wonder
so
why kids die of SIDS, right?
right. Oh, yeah. I just saw, last week that it's like 80% of SIDS happens within a
It's in within,
week.
like, it's
Yeah.
within, like, 7 days of a vaccination,
Yes. It's like, um
and the other 20% is within 14 days of
yes,
it.
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, "Oh my gosh," but no,
SIDS
no,
was
no, that
not a thing until vaccines came on the scene. It is not sudden infant death syndrome, it's sudden infant vaccine, yeah.
yes. Okay, so you have this point where the doctor is going like, "Yep, you're right, vaccines, yuck. You do not wanna become the next poster child for this."
Yeah, it was, and they were like, it is fine, it is normal, you know, next time just spread them out. He's just sensitive. It's just an allergic reaction, you know, all these things to try to calm me. And at this point, you're just like, and then, you know, thankfully I didn't take him to the doctor because here's why I say that. Not that I think all doctors or hospitals are evil and wouldn't do what they could to try to save the baby. Of course, I think they do. But when you go into a hospital, you are automatically given IV fluids.
Mhm.
Well, IV fluids, the reason that they tell them at a certain age they can only have like 2 micrograms of aluminum per day is because there is aluminum in IV bags. And
Oh,
so there is. There's small amounts of aluminum, so they know that they can only give a baby, an infant, so many fluids during a hospital stay. So thankfully, I didn't take a child who was having aluminum-induced swelling of the brain to give him an IV.
right.
And I remember praying, "God, if you will just watch over him, please, please just protect him." I was at my wit's end of what to do.
Mhm.
And he made it to the next day, but I have a picture of him the day before, smiling, laughing, happy baby, and the day after, and that blank, like,
Mm.
nobody's home stare was there. And then up until, gosh, 18 months, I would point to the book, and he would just look at me like he wanted to speak to me and couldn't. His well, there's more to it than that. I actually was an idiot. I believed them. I was a dummy. People wonder why I'm so bold. Well, because I was stupid.
Mm.
And I took him back. My husband took him in when I was working one
You
day
weren't
to
stupid, you
trust.
trusted. You were
I
trusted.
but I had the instinct.
Mhm.
I had it. I gotta be truthful. I've asked forgiveness for this on my knees many times. I had the instinct that I knew that's what had happened, and I still was so afraid that he would get something and die, right?
Mhm.
So then my husband took him in when I was working to get a chickenpox vaccine. He was, I think, 13, 14 months. He got a chickenpox outbreak on his leg, and he got a cyst the size of a golf ball on his thigh. And at that point, he was saying, "Go, throw, ball, play, mama, dada." And he got very sick and he completely stopped speaking and totally disappeared. So a kid that was able to talk and walk and make contact, suddenly this is what he would do. You would say, "Do you want to go play?" Play, and he would go like he couldn't even like "Ba-da-ga, ba-da-ga."
Oh my
He
gosh.
couldn't even like baby mumble. It was like it was like a glitch. And I had people come to my house from the state to see if he would qualify for any kind of occupational therapy, because at this point, we're giving my oldest son, we found out he has dyspraxia, we're giving him, it's so expensive. Every penny I made on Good Luck Charlie went to try to heal my children. That he's in occupational therapy now 4 times a week because he has dyspraxia, and now I've got this little one who can't speak anymore. And I go to the state and they do all these assessments with all these different professionals coming to my house to see him. And they, at 18 months of age, they qualified him as the neurological ability of a 9-month-old baby.
Oh my gosh.
And I
So you saw
knew
the digression.
I saw it. When your baby one day is like, "Hey, mama, mama, go,
Mhm.
ball, throw, play." And then the next day is like, you know something's wrong. You
Mhm.
know what I said to the doctor? "This did this to him." This is when I pulled out the punches and said, "This vaccine did this to him." And she said, "Well, you're probably right." But she said, "Sometimes these things just happen at this age." I said, "So what? At like 16 months, 18 months, they just suddenly like become autistic?" And she's like, "Yeah." Oh, I
Just
said,
out of
"Oh,
nowhere.
it's idiopathic autism? Is that what it is?"
Mhm. Mhm. Jeez. Yeah. So when is the light bulb moment where you're no longer like, "Oh, I can't trust you."
I grabbed my baby out of that office and I said, "You lied to me." That's when she said the truck thing. That's when I said, "You said they were safe." I sent them letters. And of course, there's nothing you can do. You can't
No.
come after them.
No, you cannot.
And they just started ignoring my letter. I said, "There is proof that you knew that I had been telling you that he is having these reactions and you continue to vaccinate them." I could sue them for that. But at that point, I've got 2 sick children on my hand that I need. The priority is not putting my money at fighting them. My priority is healing my kids
Right.
while they're
So is that
young.
kinda where you go head down for a couple y like, multiple years of just like, "I just need to care about my family?"
Yes. No sleep, my hair fell out, like all the things. Um, blew my insulin, not my insulin resistance, my blew my cortisol levels, blew my adrenals out the window,
Mhm.
and went down the rabbit hole of research. And so what I started with is you can't find research. Like the doctor said, "We want to give you information and research on why we think vaccines are so crucial." And I said, "Please show me. I don't
Mhm.
want this to be something that I've done and made a decision to do for my kids. Please show me that this is safe and that this isn't what caused this. I would love that." And they sent me all these articles on why vaccines are good. There was no science. It was like vaccines are good because they stop this. Okay, that's not telling me why.
Right.
Like, this is dumb. I could write this. I could just make something up and write this. That's stupid. That's not a scientific research. I want research. And so I started doing the research myself. And what I did is I looked at the ingredients of every vaccine that they had had, and I started looking up research on those ingredients. And what
Mm.
I found was that there were studies with rats that they had given aluminum and their hands could no longer grasp the wires. They were so weak and that they would get directionally confused. They were describing dyspraxia.
There I was gonna say they're
My child
describing
could not
dyspraxia.
cross midline. He would start to write with his left hand. When he got to the center, pick up the pencil and write very shakily with a right hand. He would have strange neurological things like he could write a little bit better with his right hands, but his hands would shake. It was like he couldn't hold it. He couldn't
Mhm.
use his hands well. He was constantly falling over, had low, low muscle tone. Both of them did. And I said to him once, I said, "Why do you switch hands?" And he said, "Because my left hand starts to burn, so I pick it over with my right hand because it
Oh,
starts itching to
honey.
write." And then I noticed when he was a little older and I would give him a spelling test, they had an interesting way for them to learn to spell words, which was just exercises to make them remember. One was write 10 times with your left hand, write 10 times with your right hand. Well, he couldn't write 10 times. He already had IEP. He could write the word twice, maybe. So when he wrote it with his left hand, it was spelled correctly, but the writing was terrible. When he wrote with his right hand, he could write a little bit better, but every word was misspelled.
So interesting.
And then my husband and I, we were trying to teach him golf, and we took back a pair of golf clubs 4 times. I got him the left-handed because I said, "He's left-handed."
Mhm.
He said, "He is not. He is right-handed." He went out and got the right clubs. We went back and forth, finally to discover that he's not crossing midline. So gross motor skills, he is right-handed. Fine motor skills, he is left-handed. And what people don't understand is your brain, you have kind of two brains combined as one. You have these two halves. It's crucial. You got two sides of your body. For these two to communicate, for me to know that I can do this, these brain halves, these spheres need to cross communicate with one another. When that doesn't happen because there's aluminum in the brain and they can't cross that path, it becomes basically trying to think of two things at once.
Oh my god.
So because you're trying to focus on two things at once, you fall because you can't always control it. It's
Mhm.
like and it's the same thing with sequence and organizing tasks. I would say, we're ready for school, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth." By the time he thought about step, 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 we don't think about walking across the room. They have to think about it. By the time he walks himself to the bathroom on his tiptoes so that he doesn't fall over, he gets in there and goes, "Huh,
Why am I here? What was
I
I
guess
supposed to
I
do?
guess
Yeah.
I need to wash my hands every morning, every morning." Like, people don't understand that sequencing things in life isn't just I put my underwear on first and then I put my pants on. It's also, oh, A happened and C happened. And a child with dyspraxia, you say, "How did you get from A to C?" And he'll say, "Q."
Mm.
And you're like,
Mhm.
"How did you get Q out of that?"
Right. So, at what point do you switch from head or like kind of inward on your family
Mhm.
to like there? I know you have to know the moment that you cross the line and not like in a good way, but like publicly, maybe it was a snide comment on an interview or like
Yeah, I made a
when
snide comment on Hillary Clinton's text that she wrote, "Go get your vaccines, grandma knows best." And I said, "No, she doesn't." You know, vaccines, I said something. And I got from one little comment
is
hidden in
this pandemic or is this
pre.
okay.
Everybody came on to me. And then my auditions after coming off across as probably one of the most popular characters on what was the number one show in the world, going from, oh, she's going to like have these network deals to not being able to get an audition after that comment.
So
A call
what
from
your
Deadline.
publicist
Her about
like
there. My manager would like Deadline called, "We'd love to talk to her and hear her story. If this happened to our kids, we would love to know." No, they don't. They wanna set me up to fail is what they wanna do. I looked at who was on the board at Deadline and decided, "Yeah, no, we're not talking about this," you know? And then, what really kicked it into gear, I kinda was comfortable staying quiet, and then what kicked it into gear for me was when I would try to go get help from doctors and I realized they know that these injuries happen and they don't really wanna help. Like, I even contacted, like, government agencies, they don't wanna help. And then it started to dawn on me, not only do they know it's happening, is it possible that it's by design? Like,
mm,
they're not interested in making them safer. They know kids then I did the research on the Act of 1986 where the drug manufacturers went to our government and said, "We're gonna have to stop with the program because we're being sued by so many people because so many kids are getting injured
and our
that."
government was like, "Well, you will not be sued," and yeah,
They said, "You will not be sued anymore. We will sign this bill. The pharmaceutical companies and the doctors are completely liability free if anything happens to the child. We will create a separate
separate court
vaccine
system.
injury VAERS is what it's called."
Mhm.
So what happens is if your baby dies, which many do, and I know many people whose children did die from their vaccine, SIDS. If your baby dies, then the most you can get if you go through this vaccine court is $250,000.
Yet they give out millions of dollars a year. Like, it's all public knowledge it's
By the
all
time
like
the pandemic had happened, it was up from 1986 to what was it, 2018, around there, 2019. It was over $4 billion that they'd given out, and the most that they can give out is if you literally, through chemical test, prove that that vaccine caused a death. That's the most they could give out, and still, they had given $4 billion. I mean, it was
so
astounding to watch the trajectory of when they took away that liability and when the incidence of autism and other vaccine injuries crept up.
Oh, yeah.
Even
Because they
then,
just kept adding to the
yes,
schedule.
but they don't make their big amount of money on the vaccines themselves, although they make billions of dollars. They make trillions of dollars off of treating sick kids. I cannot tell you how expensive it is to try to recover a child who's been injured.
Okay. So I I understand why. I mean, it sucks, but like the doctor has money on the line. Like, so you're incredibly aware of this, but like how much money the average pediatrician gets a year as long as a certain percentage of their patients are
They get a
fully
certain
vaccinated.
percentage, they get a certain they get an amount of money if a certain percentage of their office is vaccinated. If they get 100% vaccination rate, they get like twice as much.
Oh, so okay, so 100%. So yeah, so that's why we have doctors who are like, and like, so because I want to pivot, like I get it. They've been indoctrinated into a system. Like, what are
Yes.
they gonna do? No, I don't believe that any person goes into med school and does all of this work with the intention of like being a part of this
Well, the Rockefellers own the American Medical Association. That's who teaches them. So they
Oh.
literally get indoctrinated by the very people who created the system.
But they don't know that. Like,
They
the
don't know that.
average medical
They don't know
doctor
that.
has
The average medical
no
doctor
freaking
is
idea.
there to be a healer and is there
Yes.
and wants to help you. Unfortunately, the way our system, and I'm not blaming the doctor themselves, but the way our system is set up in the United States is that you treat the symptom with a medication. You
Mhm.
don't find the underlying
No.
issue and repair it.
And then they kinda get handcuffed. So they like, they've got this debt, they're getting a good salary, they've got bonuses, they're living a good lifestyle and they have this degree.
And
And
they are not given an education on vaccination.
right.
So, just like they're not given an education on nutrition, they're not given an education on vaccination. The most they have is about a half day, about 6 hours of vaccination training, and what they train them is how to get your patient to take it and accept it. They even have like, I've seen the sheets from Merck Pharmaceutical. They've even got guides of, like, things that you can say with, "Well, I knew that someone who had died of the measles, and this can happen and that can happen." Like, they give them a script that they can follow.
Mm. So the doctor is, and again, like I'm trying to empathize here. Like they're in practice and they start talking to parents like you, but they're just so indoctrinated into the like, nope, don't question, don't question. And whatever. For whatever reason, they make poor life choices. What I don't understand is you brought up like the government aspect of like why, so like pharma, we know why they're getting the money. Why does the government want, like, why don't they want the safety there? Like, I know that FDA gets most of their money from pharma, but, like, what's their incentive in this?
Because there are globalists in our government that want a one world order run by the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization. And certainly the way to take down the most powerful nation, there are multiple ways that they're doing it: poison our food system, spraying our air. But if you, according to the eugenics, this is not my words, theirs, if you take out an entire generation of idiots, then you can topple a country.
Mhm. So, that's so in, like, 3 sentences, yep, you okay, so you there's just so many rabbit holes we can go down here.
Yeah.
So you speak out.
Yeah.
Your
What happened was
managers, yeah.
2019, toward the end of 2019, California was in a big rush. They had taken away, so here's where California went wrong. They wanted to mandate vaccination in schools, and the parents were in an uproar. No, it's our decision. You can't mandate that we take medical products. This is nuts. So then the
Wait, can I
government,
ask you a question quick? In
yes,
your in like so we know publicly that it is career suicide to come out against some things, right? Multiple things, vaccines being one of them. But like when you're talking to your peers and like at dinner tables, like were more people kind of waking up about this? Like, are more people going like, "Oh yeah, we're vaccine hesitant," or "We're doing informed choice," or
yeah,
anything
my
like that?
friends, my close friends that I trusted to be able to tell this to, they would be like, one was panicking, was like, they want my daughter to get this vaccine, I don't want to give it to her. I don't want to give it to her because, she learned certain things from me, like, oh, the same amount that they would give a 300-pound man is what they would give a baby because it's not done on body weight. It's done by the number of cells in the bodies, and we're all human. It has this many 365 micrograms of aluminum when they give this thing at this, that, and the other. Oh, did you know this about it? Did you know that this was in it? Did you know that this caused it this? Like the more you know, so
Mhm,
that they were getting very hesitant about it. And it makes people question, yeah, why do we do that?
mhm.
We're so indoctrinated to follow doctors' orders. And someone phrased it the other day really well when they said, look, you want to buy a car? Okay, go buy a car, but don't ask questions.
Right,
Don't ask questions because you're not the car expert. So you trust the guy selling you the car and you say thank you and you take it. Like we would think that that's nuts.
right. I mean, we would think that's nuts, honestly, even within healthcare. Like, you're even allowed to ask questions about, like, high blood pressure, and if you're prescribed something, it's a safe place to go, like, "Okay, are there any natural ways that I could reduce my blood pressure? What are the side effects of this?" And most doctors are not going to feel personally offended that
Mhm.
you're asking that. So, like, even in healthcare, we're allowed to kinda ask questions in certain sectors.
And I feel bad for the doctors on this one because boy, they blew that out of the water with COVID. And you weren't allowed to
Mhm.
ask your doctor because your doctor would be punished and his medical license would be taken away.
Okay, so you were starting to talk about in 2019, California's taking
California is
away.
racing. So before that, where we went off the rails is that they said they wanted to mandate vaccinations. Parents fought back. And so parents considered it a win because they conceded. This was the big mistake. California said, fine, we're going to mandate them, but you can have three exemptions. You can have philosophical, meaning you just don't want to do it. It's your right
Yeah.
as a parent to decide so. You can have religious, it's against your religion to do so. And you can have medical. There is a medical necessity that you cannot have this vaccine.
California had all 3?
They had all three originally.
Okay.
See how it works? It's called lockstep. It's in the Rockefeller manual. So what happens is then once that's locked, oh, we'll take that one away.
Philosophical, always the first to go. I'm
Philosophical.
in Wisconsin, we have all 3.
Yeah, good, good. So take that away. Then religious exemption.
Religious.
Oh,
Mhm.
religious rights don't exist anymore. Okay. Since when? But okay. And then until 2019, it was we need to take away all medical exemptions. And I'm like, why are they in a hurry?
How is that possible to take away medical
In
exemptions?
other words, if my child who is guaranteed as United States citizens a free education, if I wanted to take him to school, they couldn't go. And because here's what they said. If they don't have to vaccinate, we're not forcing them to vaccinate a kid who's been injured and could die. We're not forcing the parent. If the parent wants to vaccinate them and they die, that's on the parent. They made that choice. So the parent would just have to homeschool. Guess what the next step is? Coming after homeschoolers. See how that works?
So, does California have medical exemptions or is it gone?
No, they took it away at the end of 2019.
So you have no exemptions.
So here I was sitting in the state of California, watching them strip this away from only 4,000 students in the entire state. There's a lot of kids in that state. 4,000 students had medical exemption. They wanted that to be stripped away. Here's how they went around it. We're not taking it away. We're saying that a government official decides if you get to have it or not. And we need your social security number. We need where the kids go to school. We need your home address. And we need to be able to intercede whenever possible if there's an outbreak of any kind. And I said to my husband, what kind of outbreak are they about to unleash?
Ooh. So that was 2019.
That was mid 2019, and it went all in up to October. Then I read and watched the entirety of Event 201, where they war gamed a pandemic with a coronavirus, and how they turned to the guy from Johnson and Johnson, and I was like, "That's so weird. Why would they war game a guy that makes baby powder, who, by the way, is being
Mhm.
having arsenic and other things in it? Why would they turn to him and say, obviously, you'll make the vaccines?" And he was like, "Right, we would have to turn to the military to ask about what they would do about forcing and mandating the vaccination." And I was like, Johnson and Johnson's going to make vaccines and they're going to come in with the military to force you to get it? Come again? And sure
Mhm.
enough, what was the first vaccine made by?
Johnson&
Johnson&
and Johnson.
Johnson. It was everything that they war gamed. The war games were sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, by the way, and Johns Hopkins, and they even gave out little plushies that were the spike proteins in a cell.
Oh, that's cute.
That's real cute. You can watch the video unless they've scrubbed it from the internet. And then, so when the word was getting out of this coronavirus, I knew someone who actually worked in Governor Newsom's office, and they said in 2 weeks they're going to shut down everything, like schools, Disneyland, everything. And so then, as soon as they did it, The first thing in the paper was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation donates $180 million to get a vaccine underway as quickly as possible. And I turned to my husband and said, this is how they're going to do it.
This is how they're gonna do what?
Force a mandatory adult vaccination schedule and on the entire public.
Mm. So, what's really interesting is I interviewed, a doc a few months ago, Stanton Home. He's down in San Diego, and he talking to him, because he became very vocal during COVID, and I was like, "How did you, like," and he's in California, and he's like, "Well, what you have to understand is, like, we had been fighting medical freedom for
Yes.
years, so we were
Yes. This is
very
going
prepared." He's, like, said, like, exactly what you're saying, like, "We were prepared, we saw this coming."
see
So,
it coming.
like, yeah, so I'm up in northern Wisconsin just, like, living my, like, rural life with my exemptions and, like, nobody's and he's like, "No, no, 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 no." I had been going to, like, the count like, protesting in county and standing
Sacramento,
up.
there were a lot of protests for taking away the medical exemptions, yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
actually pulled out guns on mothers sitting on the lawns nursing their babies. They pulled out guns and brought in the militia, you know.
yeah, so you had seen this coming.
I saw it was coming. I was kind of behind the scenes trying to wheel and deal, putting people together in higher places and trying to get people outspoken. I was trying to do my part and yet stay hidden. And then I realized
That
that ain't
wasn't gonna
right.
work.
Let other people.
How like, what in your mind, like, how so you were gonna be like, "I'm gonna keep my career possibility, and I'm just gonna, like, you guys." So what was your thought there? Like, what kind of
I was like,
people were you
I'm gonna sit behind the scenes
Yep.
and I'm gonna have all you guys do all the things.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to my friend Rob Schneider, and he was like, don't do it, girl. Don't do it. Don't do it. And when I spoke at the school board meeting, he calls me and he's like, you did it.
You
You did
did it!
it.
Okay, talk to me about the school board. When
so
is it and what happens?
so 2020, I made it. We actually locked down on March 13th, Friday, March 13th, my birthday. I went to go celebrate my birthday and went to a restaurant and I locked on the door, it pulled it, and they wouldn't open it. And everyone was sitting inside around a table discussing something. And I was like, what in the world? It's a
Right.
Sunday. Why is it closed? And I go to the next same thing, the same thing. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And there was always rumblings. I knew it was coming. I'd been told it was coming. In fact, the same day that I heard from Gavin Newsom, Austin, that they're going to lock everything down, he and Nancy Pelosi were out in Chinatown saying, "Come out, get out, go places, do things. This is not a thing. President Trump is a racist, blaming China for something, and it's not even a big deal. Look at us, we're out here." Almost like begging people to go out, knowing that they were going to lock down. So I had the perspective of information that I had that something very nefarious was afoot. I didn't know what exactly it was, but I knew they're lying. If somebody's lying, either the person that told me from Newsom's office that they're going to shut and lock everything down is lying, or they're lying.
Right. Like, which is it? Is it safe?
It's the guy that went to French Laundry during the middle of a pandemic that was lying.
Mm,
Gavin Newsom.
mhm. I bet it was easy to get into. It's hard to get reservations there.
Not during a pandemic. Yeah. So it was all very abrupt, and I made it 58 days of lockdown. But at that point, it was like, don't go outside without a mask, to turn your neighbor in. It
Yeah.
was all those
When was
things.
the school board meeting?
The school board meeting, I fled overnight with my kids before they implemented a mask on planes. That was coming the next day. I called and said, "Are you implementing mask?" They said, "Oh, we're going to do that Monday." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that makes so much sense." So I fly to Tennessee and we finally sell our home, get out here, start to get moving, start to get going.
What
And
month is this?
this is so first, I was doing a movie called Family Camp that was released in theaters, and Oklahoma was the first state to open, and I'd gotten this part that was supposed to be shot in April, but everything was still locked down. So here it was
April
June, July.
2020?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So here it was June, July of 2020, and I'm going to go do this movie. How great
Yep.
is my life? I've moved to Tennessee. I still don't have a home yet, but I'm kind of bouncing around places with my kids, and I'm going to go do this movie, and they're going to put me up in a house for a month, and I'm going to shoot this great film. We're going to have great because Oklahoma's open. I get a letter from SAG, cease and desist, you're not allowed to do this film. I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? I'm not allowed to."
What?
So I'm not allowed to uh go outdoors. I'm not allowed to not wear a mask. I'm not allowed to not do this. I'm not allowed to work, but Oklahoma is open. Why does SAG know more than Oklahoma, who has deemed it safe to completely open and that we're able to go film this film legally, why is SAG shutting it down?
Right.
Well, because SAG is just another Democratic arm of the government, apparently, wanting to keep it closed. I don't know the reason. I don't know if it was for election interference. I don't know. I don't know what it was for, but they made it very clear they did not want actors to go back to work. And so I did something called FICOR, which is where you can do both union and non-union work based on the two legal notifications that I had found was based on the fact that it was a unilateral decision that I did not vote for. SAG made that decision without me, and based on the fact that it had been a long time and I could not get work within a 50-mile radius of my home. I couldn't even get a 50, an
Right.
audition in my state,
Yeah.
let alone get a job in my state. So I said, I'm doing this movie. And I did it. And it was great. And nobody died. Everybody had a great time. Then I moved back to Tennessee and it was right before the kids were going back to school. I want to say it was August of 2020. First of all, I made a big mistake online again. I get home from shooting this movie. We're in a camp where there's no reception on your cell phone. So I was working nonstop and had my kids with me. I wasn't going to be on Twitter and all the things following everything. So I get back to my parents' home and I'm falling asleep and I just check Twitter and there is a picture of um, President Biden in a black mask and it just says, wear a mask. And I responded as I'm like half asleep. I've driven 14 hours. I've had no sleep for a month. And I just put, that's a really overreaching suggestion, but you do you. That's all I said. I was very respectful.
I mean, right.
It lit. My phone starts ringing. I'm like, what is going on? And you're so brave. I'm like, am I? Am I brave? Well, how am I brave?
What did I do? Yeah.
What did I do? What did I step in now? That is what I thought. What did I step in now? And then I see that I've trended to number 2 on Twitter for calling out the president or
Because
a
of
presidential
that
nom at the time, it
comment.
was a presidential nominee. And then, of course, I was named a Trump lover and all the things, and listen, I'm ticked at him. He made it at warp speed. The other guy mandated it. In my opinion, that's a business partnership. I'm not happy with either of them. So,
Mhm.
that's where I was, and
So
then
really nobody so for you to make that comment, which yeah, okay.
that's an overreaching suggestion, but you
Yeah,
do you. That's all I said.
that so, like, literally, like, no one is speaking out if that kind of comment
It not
becomes
only lit a fire, it got me labeled as a racist and a homophobe. I don't know how they made the link to those 2 things because the community that's been damaged most by vaccines is the African American
right,
community. You can look at what it does to little boys for the autism study that they destroyed, and you could look at the Tuskegee experiments.
but yet okay, so what do you do then?
It's a bunch of white
Meanwhile, do
telling me
you
that.
have what is your manager/publicist saying during like, so you have, like, these 2 comments now that
My
you
manager's like, "Oh, Leigh-Allyn, Leigh-Allyn," but he also knows that I know what I'm talking about,
right. You have
and
y
he stood by me.
okay.
And he would say to people, because my opinion isn't, you're not allowed to do that. Like, I'm not like those parents at the school board meeting that were like, your kid has to wear a mask. I'm of the viewpoint of, I'm I'm not going to tell you what to do with your kids. I believe in your freedom to make that decision, but you also don't get to tell me what to do with
Right.
mine. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. That is your choice. I will fight for your right to make those decisions for yourself. I don't think anybody should
Mhm.
interfere with that. But I would like the freedom to do that for myself as well. So that was very controversial, apparently, that I did that. So I
That's
spoke
what happened at the school board meeting?
at the
Was that
school
in
board meeting.
Tennessee?
It was in Tennessee. I
Okay.
didn't know it was gonna be filmed. I didn't know it was gonna blow up. I went there with, like, crappy mom jeans with my hair on top of my head and no makeup on. I did not have any clue.
Bob Schneider's
I
like,
wore
"Girl, you could have at least looked good while you
I
were
could have
doing
at least
it."
listen, I would not have worn those jeans, let me tell you. I was filmed from behind. I would have had my safety pants on and heels. I would put a little Spanx action in there too, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Um But a friend had been asking me to go, and I was like, I can't. I'm spending time with my family. I'm spending time with my kids." And my kids said to me, "Mom, you've spent so much time and energy standing up for us, but other people don't know.
Mhm.
And we think that you should stand up for those kids too." And so I thought, oh, darn it. Out of the mouths of babes, they're right. So I go to the school board meeting, and when I grabbed some books on the way out that literally I just ordered and they were on my kitchen counter. And I thought, well, I can read some things from the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. I can Federalist Papers. I can read some things to get the crowd going while we're all sitting outside while this is going on behind closed doors. And we can like have an open discussion about what our legal rights are. And that
So
might be I'm
you're rallying the crowd at
I'm
this
literally like, I'm gonna go
it's gonna
and
be
educate people and we're gonna I'm gonna open a dialogue. I wanna open a dialogue outside of the doors.
Okay.
And then I get there and this woman's like, "I've been waiting in line all day with this number to speak because I want you to do it." And I was like,
Oh.
"I
Oh,
don't know."
so they oh, okay.
I was like, "I don't have anything prepared." They were like, "People will listen to you when you speak." And I was like, "No, they won't. No, they won't. Like, I'm from a sitcom. No one's gonna listen. No one's gonna listen. I don't wanna know what you're talking about." And they called my number. I had no idea what I was gonna say. And I just said it hit me when I walked up there. I almost cried. I was overcome with probably nerves speaking out, but I was overcome with also gratitude that I still, at this moment in time, lived in a country where I could say the truth without repercussion. So I thought, but at
I
least
was
without
gonna
being
say,
without
that's what
being
you
put in
thought at
jail.
that moment.
I would be persecuted, but I wouldn't be put behind jails.
Mhm.
So I found beauty in that moment. As harsh of a moment as we're in, I found in that second gratitude and beauty. And I cracked a joke and I said, I'm a California refugee. And it's a joke around here because
Okay.
I did flee California. I did. You
Mhm.
know, if you're a parent of a vaccinated child and the governor comes out and says, we will not get back to a normal society until every single person has had the shot and their boosters, then you're like, oh, you just pointed a loaded gun to my kids' heads.
Yeah.
It's a hard no for me. That is a death threat, in my opinion. So I said, I'm grateful to be here. I was met here with loving open arms. And I said, basically, I have two vaccine injured children, and still I would never put them in a mask because every neurologist that's sitting here could tell you their brain needs oxygen more than anything to grow.
Mhm.
And that's a fact. I dare someone, maybe people react differently to wearing a mask. Like I tried one once, I couldn't breathe. I don't know how people do
Yeah.
it. I started to have like a panic attack and all the things. It was not for me. And I knew it was just a Band-Aid that didn't do anything anyway. If I'm sorry, I don't wanna be rude on your
Oh my
show, but if
god.
you wear
No,
jeans
you're
and
in safe
underwear,
space.
if you can fart through jeans and underwear while it's still through a mask, then, like, that virus particle is, like, it's doing nothing.
I mean, the number of people that were making homemade masks, like, and stuff, and I'm just like, "Okay, sure, sure, sure." Like, yeah, sounds good. That is doing
So I was being so polite and respectful, and then but I was also gonna say the truth. Like, I can be polite and respectful of you and still state a fact, and the fact that I stated that lit the fire was, I have a right for freedom and to breathe oxygen without restriction because, of these books that I brought for you, and I brought them as a gift. I mean, I brought them parting gifts. I brought them a hostess gift, and I said, I have the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, and the Bible, and these guarantee my right and our children's right to breathe oxygen. This is one nation under God, not one nation under Joe Biden, President Trump, Fauci, or the little woman with a scarf on her neck. It's not.
mhm. So then what were the repercussions of this?
So I went home and people said that I stormed out because, they put it on Inside Edition. She stormed out. And what I did was I walked out and waved. We were having a break, but of course they've got loud music and everybody's talking and it's loud in the room. They put music to it and say I stormed out. And literally one person finally commented and said, she didn't storm out. Look, I bump into a guy's knee that's there. And I think he does have a mask on. And I gently leaned down and pat his leg and said, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean to bump into him. And then I walked out and I went home because as someone from California, I know that this game is rigged.
Right.
I know about ESSER funds that they're receiving where they are being paid and getting lots of money to separate kids and mask, to move them on the floor. And weirdly enough, in Tennessee, I saw this too. You could send your kid to school without a mask. Most kids didn't wear a mask, but they had to send in a religious exemption for it. Oh, so if you can get a religious exemption during the highest pandemic of the year and not be given any problems for not wearing a mask, but if you didn't have that religious exemption and you went in with a mask, you were quarantined and put in detention by yourself. They did that to kids.
It's
My husband
insane.
wa my husband was like, "Let me get this straight. We flee California because of the tyranny and our kids can't go to school to move to a state where they have good public schools and you're going to homeschool?" And I was like, "That is correct.
So
I
you
am no
homeschooled.
longer participating in these shenanigans." And that school board did not have the right to make that decision, and I called it out and told them why, and they didn't like it. So I went home thinking nothing about it, went to sleep. The next day I wake up, I go to our favorite little breakfast place because Tennessee was free and open. And these young girls that knew me from Good Luck Charlie come running up to me, bouncing up and down. Oh my gosh, your video went viral. And I was like, what video? What are you talking about?
Didn't even know it was recorded.
Didn't
That
even
was
know. No clue. No clue. And they said, "Yeah, your video of the school board meeting went viral." And I was like, "What?" Again, my famous thing that I always say to myself, "What did I step in?" You know? And it was a day of like, what did I do? What did I do? I'm getting calls from Fox News. I'm getting calls from CBS, NBC, people wanting this. Oh, and it's the best. The best is, we are just so concerned. We would love to hear about her vaccine. Inside Edition, who did a total hit piece on me, then calls and says, "We would love to hear your story. We think that your voice deserves to be heard." I said, "No, you
How
don't.
did you
You
know
did a
that
massive hit piece on me."
but how did you know, like, how did you know that they were not going to
Because
support the
they
story?
just did a massive hit piece on me on Inside Edition that came out. My mom's like, "Did you know you're on Inside Edition?" And I was like, "No, I did not. No, ma'am, I did not. Did you know you're on this? Did you know you're on that for your rant at the school board meeting?" So now it's a rant
Rant.
I gave at the school board meeting. So, like, I knew that the company that had just done a hit piece on me wasn't suddenly gonna do a soft, feely, heartwarming, let your story be told piece on me. That
Mhm.
wasn't gonna happen. So I told them, "No, and I've got every right to sue you." Like, there was a paper in Tennessee that wrote that Leigh-Allyn Baker clearly made it known at the school board meeting that she refuses to protect her children from COVID, setting it up that I'm dangerous for my kids to possibly take them away.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not what I ever said.
So now you're the poster child. So
Yeah.
you've kind of spent all these years, like you said, like you knew you have this doctor telling you, don't become Jenny McCarthy, don't do this, don't do
Yeah.
this. You didn't intend to do it, but
Nope.
now it's public and you are now the Hollywood representative against
Yeah,
against vaccines.
yeah. Now I'm an anti-vaxxer, even though I vaccinate my kids
Who
every breath.
else in Hollywood had, like, been thrown into the fire like this at this
No one had
point?
been thrown in the fire because a lot of
Nobody.
people in Hollywood feel this way, but they just won't speak about it.
So, like, legit, it was like,
Eventually, Gina Carano, who
didn't
also worked for Disney on Mandalorian, she's the one who also came out then at that point.
didn't was it Robert De Niro? Does he have a son with
Robert De
autism?
Niro has yes, yes, and he was behind the movie Vaxxed, which I encourage everyone,
Yes.
Dr. Andrew Wakefield, because you will not believe the papers that the whistleblower proves and shows on what they've been hiding and that it is nefarious.
And that was pre-2020.
Yes.
So, like, what's De Niro doing during all of this? Just like, "I'm just gonna stay quiet,"
Yeah,
or
somebody gave him some reason to pipe down, didn't they? I guess that's the thing with me, like, I can't be bought.
Mhm. Did you have people trying to get you to shut up?
Yeah, ain't happening.
Um,
I'm not for sale. My kids' lives aren't for sale.
mhm.
Our nation's freedom isn't for sale on my watch.
So then how did your story come out?
So, it was after I spoke at the school board meeting, my story just kinda just completely came out, and, it was in the open, and then, I got death threats and all the things, and there was one day where I was just beaten, and then the next day, that little voice in my head, when you're afraid, you're like, "Oh, what did I do? What did I do? Oh gosh,
Mhm.
what did I do?" And then the next day, that voice got louder, and it was like, "What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Oh, I spoke the truth. That's all I did." And suddenly I became, and the next day also, Joe Biden came out and said that the people that went against the COVID narrative at the Williamson County School Board meeting, which I was the one that went viral,
Oh,
are now domestic terrorists. Oh, so now add that to my resume. Like mom from Good Luck Charlie, domestic terrorist.
yes, yes, yes. Who, um, who was the most surprising, like, repercussion of, like, trying to silence you? Was it Biden calling you a domestic terrorist?
That was
Like,
definitely surprising. That was
uh-huh.
that was shocking. Wait a second. I used my freeze like, I didn't go riot, I didn't go burn something down, I didn't go throw
Yeah.
bricks, I didn't go hit anyone, hurt anyone, say anything rude to anyone. I politely used my voice to speak the truth, and the president of the United States said that.
Mhm.
And that was when I was like, it shocked me, but I found it hilarious. I thought that that's the funniest thing. Like, you may get people to think a lot of things about me. You're not gonna get the public to think that that funny mom from Good Luck Charlie is a domestic terrorist. That's not going to happen. You just
Mhm.
look like a buffoon. You look like a bigger idiot today than yesterday, if that's even possible.
So what was one of the most surprising outcomes from this now being public?
That I can't get a single no, I cannot get a single, like, audition in Hollywood, like, no one, like, Disney dropped me like that. I was doing a pilot for them up until the end of 2019, but what the most surprising thing was is radio silence from people. Radio silence from people. That was the most like, you learn who your friends are during this kind of a thing, and you learn who they aren't.
Well, it's tough because, like, Hollywood like, it's built on people that need to be accepted in
Oh,
order.
yeah, they're such virtue signalers. Oh, they wanna be popular by everybody. It's just jump on the bandwagon of whatever is popular in the moment. They're just like little parrots. It's really not very intelligent.
How is Hollywood so bought? Like, do you think that people I mean, it's very aware to me, but, like, do you think the general public now understands that Hollywood and our government are so intertwined?
I think they're starting to realize that. I mean, all you have to do is look at China and know that nobody in China watches the news. They're like, "Oh, no, we know it's all propaganda, so we just don't watch it." I mean, like, like, it's bought. It's called television for a reason, to tell a vision. It's called kids programming for a reason. It's to program your kids.
So I saw, I've not fact checked this yet, but I saw something the other day that the Pentagon has a budget for Hollywood films.
Sure, and the CIA, there's lots of papers that have been uncovered showing the CIA's involvement.
How are people okay, so people are waking up though. Like, so what are some of the
I'll
outcomes
tell
that
you,
you've seen
I
positive?
wanna
Yeah.
say something about why people how are people believing this? I'll tell you how. And this gives me hope. I believe that people believe it not because they're evil, malicious, dumb people. I believe that we've been brainwashed for 2 generations at least have been completely brainwashed and hoodwinked. But I also believe that they're playing on the fact that people actually have good hearts. People actually
Mhm.
want to do well. They want to extend kindness and do what's best and safe for everyone. And so they play into that and use that as a weakness against them. So it's not like I think that the world acted this way because they're evil. I believe that people react this way because deep down they're really good and they used that as that weakness against them.
So Bill Gates at his heart is good?
Oh, no, no, no. I meant the people.
Oh,
It's
okay.
see, I look at the world this way. People look at it as Republican, Democrat, black, white, gay, straight, man, woman, um, um, Israel, and Gaza. Like they look at it
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
these things against each other. In my mind, it's not like here's the global elite up here, these elite
Yeah.
billionaires that control everything in this fascist world that are going for what they call a one world order. There's websites where like they say
Yeah.
by 2030 you will own nothing and you will be happy about it. Like sidebar, that means they're going to take your stuff. Okay. So there's this group of people, and then there's us, and then they divide us so that we fight each other. Now,
Right.
if you take this paradigm and you turn it on the side, what you've got us, the people who would never want to start a war in another country, who don't want to go around killing people, who don't want to segregate and hate on everybody. They just want to live their lives and be left alone. And then you've got this small elite. In my opinion, it's this elite versus us, the people.
Mhm.
And I've been accused of a lot of things. I went to Starbucks once and I was accused of being anti-Palestine. I just want to make it very clear while I'm on your show. I am anti-blowing anybody up. I am
Mhm.
anti any kids losing any body parts. I am anti rape. I am anti anybody hurting anybody else. I am pro keep your hands on your own body. And I can't believe that saying that in this day and age is controversial.
Because the propaganda is there to make it controversial, because that
Yeah.
does not always support a certain agenda.
Correct.
So when did you start writing your book?
So, Brave Books reached out to me and wanted me to write a children's book.
Okay.
And so
The vaccine injured child.
it's not, it's about
And then little Johnny got
it's the mom at the
17.
school board meeting, is what it is. It's just
Oh.
different. She is a princess in a musical land. And everyone there has a musical gift except for her. She can't play an instrument, she can't do anything. All she can do is hum, and she's afraid to do that loudly because she's afraid to sing in front of people. She's afraid to speak and sing in front of people. But
Mhm.
her mother always sings her this lullaby about facing your fears. And Scylla, the evil Bill Gates in
Mhm.
the story, spreads purple fog to block out the sun and cause fear and like I said, true story. And What happens is gets so afraid, she's so afraid that she starts singing her mother's lullaby that she sang to her. And it's one small little voice. It starts with a spark, a world full let me see. I wrote it. One small little voice, it starts with a spark, a world full of choice, so light up the dark. A lamp at your feet to guide you along. If ever you fear, then just sing this song. So she starts to slowly sing this song. And not only does it bring her comfort, the fog starts to disappear. So she knows what she has to do. So she runs to the town to find that everyone has disappeared. Everyone of their own accord, because of fear, has locked themselves into their home and is hiding. So she blasts out that song loud for everyone to hear.
Mm.
And as the fog starts to disappear, everyone comes out and they start to join her. And the moral of the story is like when I spoke at that school board meeting, yeah, it took a lot of heat, but people started coming out of the woodwork at every school board meeting, speaking up and standing for truth
Mhm.
and standing up to protect the children. And that is the moral of the story that, it takes one small little voice to stand up for many, then many will join and be voices of plenty. And that is what has started to happen.
Do you feel like you're blacklisted? You said you can't get a job.
Yeah, I can't get one from them, but I can make one for myself. And so
Mhm.
that's what I've done.
So what
So
is next for you? Yeah.
so not only did I write this book, but I'm writing a movie, I'm producing a 3-movie series, and I'm also producing a television series that's going into production for kids, at the end of this month. So
How That's
I
amazing.
realized that, like, they don't want to make good, clean, wholesome family value content anymore. It's, like, off the table. So I was like, "Okay, great. The lane is wide open. I'm just gonna build my own car and drive in it." And so
Mhm.
that's what I've done. So I've actually now and I want people to hear this because they're afraid something's going to happen to them, like, "What happened to me?" But what happened to me is I moved to a state where people are free, where people defend your freedom, where people are loving, they are kind, they pray for you, they want the best for you. And I'm in a place where my kids get to go outdoors and walk in the grass and have wildlife around them, and my career has never been more successful.
It's really hard. So many of the people listening, like this is like just been like nodding along, just like, yep, yep, know that. I just learned about chemtrails like a year and a half ago. People were like, "What, Lauren? What?" I was like, "I didn't know." Um, but when I feel like I get very like hopeless anytime that we talk about the gravity of this, of just like, there's the powers that be. And when you start to open your eyes to this, it can feel very hopeless to me of like, we're never going to change anything. Like, I do believe, and you would know a million times more than me, it feels safer to speak out than it ever has been.
Yes.
Yes?
I agree because people like, look, it just took asking questions and saying it out loud for people are really like, yeah, I was thinking that too, but I didn't want to say anything. Like, it seems pretty odd that, like, if you don't get a medical product from the government, that you're like completely ostracized from society. How did that happen? I mean, even
Mhm.
people who are pro-vaccine are like, what is that about? That's weird. Uh,
Yes.
they've even
Well,
admitted they've admitted under oath that it doesn't stop transmission and it doesn't stop you from being infected. So there's that. Oh, whoops, I was right on that.
yeah, but no, vindication. 0 vindication of like, "Hey, you know what?
Hey, about that
We were
thing,
wrong."
you're right about that. Yeah, there's even a person in my cast that not only has unfollowed me on everything, known me for 14 years, loves me, knows who I am, knows my heart, but crops me out of pictures that they post of Good Luck Charlie and tags everyone but me.
Just yep, can't be associated with you. Career
There
suicide.
comes a point where the behavior is so atrocious, like that one, that it doesn't even hurt my feelings anymore. That I'm
Right.
just, oh, thank you for showing me, Lord, who this person is.
Yeah.
Thank And I think that is where, I really do lean into my faith. I'm hopeful that people will lean into their faith, whatever it is. I believe in religious freedom, but I lean into my faith of like, there's someone bigger in control here, and there's a bigger battle going on than I can even see.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, will include a link. Where can you buy the book? Can you buy it everywhere?
Buy the book One Small Little Voice at bravebooks.com or bravebooks.us. And you can subscribe to their Freedom Island Brave Book series, and your kid will receive a book every month. And it's so interactive. It's so cool. It comes with stickers and masks, and there's this whole online information and games that you can play. And each one comes with a lesson. And so this has a lesson on teaching your children that their one small little voice matters, and that all it takes is to face your fears, find the courage, and do it anyway. And then more voices will follow. So you can get it at bravebooks.com. You can buy the book separately, or you can get it for free if you join their book club.
I love that you're the perfect author for in your story. I love that Brave Books chose you to, like, help teach this and
Yeah,
spread this
Brave Books
lesson.
chose me and they wanted to take the story. They were like, "Here's our pitch for the story." And I was like, "How about this instead?" And
Yeah.
then, like, halfway through, they were like, "This is your story." I was like, "Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Henry.
Wait a minute. We
We
Oh,
recognize this."
Leigh-Allyn, thank you so much, not just for your time today, but just, like, for being willing to take the hit you did. Like,
Yeah.
I trust that you are not thanked enough for being willing, like, because there's government and Hollywood and the news, and, like, that is everything that us normal people get access to, and so it's just great being like, "Oh, I'm not crazy." Like, "Okay, wait, one stepped out of line." Okay, it's
Yeah. It's like time to break the facade. That matrix needs to crumble. We need to see the
Mhm.
truth and know what we're dealing with and look the devil straight in the eye, so to speak. And I did it because I love people. I didn't do it because I want to hurt anyone. I
Well, you
certainly
sure as shit didn't do it to make money.
I certainly didn't do it to make money. Oh, that was what a lot of people said, "She's doing this to make
Are you
money." Oh,
fucking
right.
kidding me?
Okay. Uh-huh.
Don't think you understand how
Yeah, you
Hollywood
don't understand the
works.
ramifications of what's happened. There was nothing fun that came out of it for me. But I'll tell you what, I will not lay down and let people walk all over my family, my rights, and my children. You cannot have my children. You literally have poked the wrong mama bear.
Thank you so much for your story and your time, and, like, I'm excited to, see, just continue the ripple effect of everything you've done, so
So nice to talk with you. Look, much love to you and your fan base and your family. And thank you so much for speaking with me.
thanks. Alright, She Slayers, until next week, bye.